بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وإذ بوأنا لإبراهيم مكان البيت ألا تشرك بي شيئا وطهر بيتي للطائفين والقائمين والركع السجود.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة لأهل التقوى واليقين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب إله العالمين العبد المؤيد الرسول المسدد المصطفى الأمجد المحمود الأحمد أبي القاسم مصطفى محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. أما بعد، فقد قال الحكيم في كتابه الكريم: ولله على الناس حج البيت من استطاع إليه سبيلا. It has been narrated from Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam, who said that whoever dies without having performed the obligatory pilgrimage, the Hajj, when he was not prevented by any impediments like lack of means or illness or force or something like that, he dies a Jew or a Christian. This hadith signifies the importance of Hajj, the importance of this pilgrimage. Performance of pilgrimage becomes obligatory immediately in the year when its conditions are realized. Of course, there are certain conditions, certain requirements that have to be available if Hajj pilgrimage becomes obligatory. And of course, in the absence of those conditions and those requirements, one is not under the obligation to make any arrangements for Hajj or to take action for going to Hajj. If, for example, if a person goes on a Hajj without one of those conditions being available, then he has not performed an obligatory Hajj, he has performed rather a recommended Hajj, a Hajj which will not suffice for the Hajjatul Islam or the obligatory Hajj. Therefore, when all the conditions and all the necessary requirements are available and are met, then in that case, if a person performs Hajj, his Hajj would be in order and it will be considered as Hajjatul Islam on his part. And of course, as I mentioned in the previous session, Hajj becomes obligatory on a person who has attained the age of purity, a person who should be baligh. And of course, a boy reaches the age of puberty at the completion of 15 lunar years, and a girl reaches the age of puberty at the completion of 9 lunar years. Now, before this age, if a person is financially capable and he or she has the means to travel for Hajj, this Hajj would not be considered as Hajjatul Islam, rather it's considered as a recommended Hajj. And of course, after he becomes or after she becomes baligh or adult, then he or she must take action for another Hajj, which would be the obligatory Hajj. And of course, the second condition after adulthood is that one should be sane and should be free also. Hajj is not obligatory on a person who is not sane. It is not obligatory on an insane person or a slave. If a person is in the custody of another individual, or if a person is crazy or mad and he does not know anything, he does not understand anything, even though he might have a property, he might be rich, it will not be obligatory on him to perform Hajj. And the third condition is that when a person proceeds to Mecca to perform Hajj, he should not be compelled to forsake an obligatory work which is more important than Hajj. Or he should not be compelled to commit a haram action which is more grave in terms of as compared to living and abandoning the duty of Hajj. So neither a person should commit a haram act on the way to Mecca, nor he should be compelled to forsake an obligatory work which is more important than Hajj. Now this is the third condition. The fourth condition is that one should be capable of performing Hajj. And of course, being capable of performing Hajj has different meanings, and it of course depends on a number of factors. Now what are those factors or those conditions or those things which are required for being capable? Now capability has a lot of meanings and different meanings. One has to be capable. Capable in what terms? In what sense one should be capable? Of course, there are certain things that has to be considered and taken into consideration when speaking of capability or when speaking of ability. When it comes to the meaning of capability in terms of Hajj, capability means that one should possess the provisions and means for transportation. This is the first condition. And of course, if need be, or he should have enough money to buy them, of course, if need be. Otherwise, it's not necessary for him to buy, because in the present time, of course, there are different means of transportation, and one is not compelled, of course, to buy means, or he cannot even buy. Even if he buys that, he may not be able to move from one country to another because there are restrictions. So he has to have the means for transportation. That means, of course, that actually means that you have to have the visa, you have to have the ticket, you have to make the arrangements for going. And all these things have to be, all these arrangements have to be made before leaving for Mecca. Now this is the first condition. The second condition is that one should be healthy and strong enough to go to Mecca. And he should be able, of course, because of his physicality, his strength, he should be able, he should be strong enough, of course, to perform the Hajj. If he is so weak that he cannot walk, that he cannot, for example, perform the rituals, the rites, he cannot go to Muzdalifah and to Mina and do all those difficult rites. So he is not, if he is not strong, if he is not healthy, it is not necessary for him to perform Hajj, and it's not obligatory on him to perform Hajj because he is not physically capable. Now the second meaning, and of course the second factor or the third factor is that there should be no obstacle on the way. If a person is going to Mecca, Of course, there should be no robbers, should be no dacoits, there should be no impediment as such. Because if he, for example, if he's living in a remote place and he has to travel all the way by land, and there are thieves on the way, there are dacoits on the way, he might be robbed, he might be killed. So such fear should not exist, and the probability of such things even should not be there. If one has genuine fear that he might be, for example, he might be robbed of his property, he might be or killed, and he fears that he might be, of course, snatched of whatever means he has, then of course he cannot travel and he cannot risk. He cannot come to Mecca.
يا دافع الخطوب يا جابر المعطوف يا من هو مندوبي فعفوك مطلوبي يا دافع الخطوب يا جابر المعطوف يا من هو مندوبي فعفوك مطلوبي يا ستار العيوب يا غفار الذنوب يا ستار العيوب يا غفار الذنوب يا علام الغيوب يا كشاف الكروب.
So this is the third condition. And the fourth condition of capability is that he should have enough time to reach Mecca. Yes. Now, for example, if someone gives you money today, and there are only 5 days or 10 days left, how can you go to Mecca? You have not enrolled yourself, you have not prepared yourself, you cannot even make the arrangements for going to Mecca, and it's not, the means are not within you. You cannot buy the ticket and you cannot do all these things. So how can you go to Mecca? You must have enough time, and that is an important condition. If you have time enough to prepare yourself, to take action, to buy a ticket, to reserve seats for yourself, then that is okay, and you are qualified. You should go and you should take action for going on. If you have no time left, then of course you are not considered to be capable. And the fifth condition for capability is that he should have sufficient money to meet the expenses of his dependents whose maintenance is obligatory on him. Like, for example, if he has wife, if his children, he should have enough money to give them, to buy things with, to provide for themselves with whatever they need when he goes on a Hajj pilgrimage. And of course, he himself also should have enough money to cover the expenses, of himself while he is on a Hajj journey, and on his return also he should have the means and the money, the resources to use to come back. So in his absence, of course, his family should not suffer from hunger, from lack of food, and from lack of necessities. So he should provide for them, and he should leave them money so that they can purchase and buy things they need in his absence. And of course, on return from Hajj, from Mecca, one should have some means of livelihood, like income from his property, and also farming, business, employment, and maybe he should have a shop, he should have a business, a running business, so that when he comes back, he should not suffer from any financial or difficulties, any economic problems, and he should have these things. Otherwise, he is not considered to be capable. Now, these are the conditions, the necessary conditions of capability. And, of course, and the absence of one of these factors and the absence of one of these conditions, one is not considered to be capable. Now, one thing of course I did mention in the previous session is that if one, for example, is capable now in every sense, and he cannot go or he does not go, he commits a sin, he has committed a sin, but that he should, if in this year he fails to go, he should take action to go and perform Hajj in the ensuing year and the coming year. He cannot postpone it because it's an immediate duty that one has to perform. If one fails to do for some reason, maybe it is not his guilt, he is not faulty, but sometimes he might be faulty also, he might be guilty. If he is guilty or not guilty, in either case, if he fails to perform Hajj in the same year in which he becomes capable, then he must perform it in the next year which comes, and the next year. Now, let's assume that in the next year he loses his money, he becomes poor, and he becomes bankrupt, he goes bankrupt, and he has nothing to use, no money, no balance, no means of transportation, and so he is deprived of all these, of every means. Is Hajj obligatory on him or not? Is it necessary for him to go and perform Hajj? Of course, it is a duty, and he should perform Hajj. No matter what the odds might be against him, he must perform Hajj, and it is a duty that should be fulfilled. In case he himself, he cannot go, he cannot perform Hajj. For example, one of the conditions of performing Hajj is that one should be physically healthy, he should be strong, he should be strong enough to perform the Hajj rituals. Now, if he is sick now, or maybe if he makes an accident and he loses one of his limbs, so still he should perform Hajj. And if he himself cannot do it, he should hire someone, he should give money to someone else to perform Hajj on his behalf. That is a duty that should not be ignored, and it should be fulfilled in whatever way possible. Even if one is required to hire someone, he should hire someone. Or if one is required to make a will, he should make a will, he should leave a will, so that his heirs should use his property to perform Hajj on his behalf. If a person is hired to perform Hajj, if a person is hired to perform the Hajj pilgrimage, and he cannot do it himself, he wishes to hire someone else in his stead to perform it on his behalf, is it allowed or not? Because he himself was hired and he wants to hire someone else, a third person. In this case, of course, it is allowed insofar as the person, the principal individual, the one who hired him, consents to it. If he consents, then there is no problem, he can do it, and the Hajj would be valid, and there would be no problem in the pilgrimage which he performs.
ناجيتك يا رحمن ودعوتك يا ديان يا خالق الإنسان الله 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 يا خالق الإنسان الله الله الله.
As I mentioned, the first act of Hajj, through which one enters the Hajj rites and he starts performing the Hajj rituals is Ihram. Ihram is the first obligatory thing that one must start his Hajj with. Ihram is a piece of cloth, or you can say two pieces of cloth that a pilgrim wears. He wears it at the station, at miqat. Miqat is a well-known word for the pilgrims. Whoever goes to Mecca, he or she will understand the term miqat. Miqat is the station, it is the place from where you wear the garment, you wear the cloth, and then you enter the state of ihram, and then there are certain things that will become haram for you because you have entered the state of ihram, the state of prohibition. You cannot perform certain things and certain actions. Inshallah, in the next session to come, I will explain the prohibitions of ihram, those things which are prohibited for a person who enters the state of ihram, who has become muhrim, who has worn the white piece of cloth. Of course, it is obligatory only on men to wear ihram. Only on men, they have to wear two pieces of cloth which are not stitched together, which have no buttons and nothing, and which is not, of course, stitched together. You have to tie it with something, but it should not be stitched with the needle, and there should not be any kind of sewing on that piece of cloth. It is a special piece of cloth, and of course you will learn how to wear that piece of cloth. One is worn as trouser and another is put on the shoulder. So you might wear a belt on it, and that there would be no problem in wearing the belt. It is allowed because you have to tie it with something. Either you have to tie it with the piece of cloth itself, or you must have a belt to wear on it so that you have to keep the piece of cloth together and so that it may not fall down. And one thing that has to be noted is that the piece of cloth or the garment which you are going to wear should be pure. It should be provided from a halal source, and the money which you use to buy it must be pure. There should not be anything haram in that money, and you should have paid khums from that amount of money with which you are going to provide the ihram, that piece of cloth. And it should not be stained with blood or any impurity. If it is impure, if it is stained with blood or something like that, then of course you have to wash it, you have to change it, and you cannot wear it because it is like a clothing for a person who performs an obligatory duty, an obligation which requires ritual purity. As far as women is concerned, of course, it is not obligatory on them for them to wear ihram. They can wear the same clothes as they were wearing, and of course it's better for them to wear white clothes, white dress, and the white and they should not, of course, cover their faces, and they should not wear gloves. It's forbidden for them to cover their faces, and it's also forbidden to cover their hands. So in the next session to come, I will elaborate, I will explain on the prohibitions of ihram, the necessary conditions for those people who enter the state of ihram, and those conditions have to be taken into consideration in order for his Hajj to be obligatory. Otherwise, if a person enters the state of ihram and he ignores one or two or some of the conditions, some of the prohibitions, then his Hajj would be affected. He will have to pay penalty, and the penalty is sometimes heavy. It is not affordable by ordinary individual. So in the next session I will carry on and explain those prohibitions, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
ربنا يا ربنا يا ربنا
يا ربنا
واغفر لنا وارحمنا يا ربنا ربنا يا ربنا يا ربنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا يا ربنا يا ربنا ربنا يا ربنا يا ربنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا يا ربنا ربنا يا ربنا يا ربنا